Ever spent a Tuesday morning staring at the back of someone's head in a fluorescent-lit government office, just waiting to renew a simple permit? It is a universally frustrating experience, rigid, cold, and entirely impersonal. But the people who originally built these systems were not trying to make your life miserable. They just were not thinking about you at all. Their sole obsession was building a frictionless, mathematically perfect administrative machine. Over the last century, political scientists looked at these massive systems and noticed a glaring omission. The state was heavily engaged in administering the public, but nobody was asking for whom it was being administered. To understand how modern government actually functions, we have to trace how the state's definition of you, the citizen, evolved from a passive bystander into an active co-creator. Let's rewind to the late 1800s through the 1950s, a period experts call the classical phase of public administration. Back then, your role was clearly defined. You were a bystander to the state's operations. In 1887, Woodrow Wilson laid the groundwork for this era. He argued that administration should be completely walled off from the messy world of politics, so it could operate with the strict, unfeeling efficiency of a business. A few decades later, sociologist Max Weber drew up the blueprints for how this machine would run. He designed bureaucratic models based strictly on rigid hierarchy, detailed written rules, and total impersonality. During this classical era, government agencies were judged by a single metric: internal efficiency. The state rowed the boat, and the citizen was expected to sit quietly in the back. That mindset held until the post-World War II rebuilding efforts of the 1950s through the 1970s. A movement called New Public Administration forced the state to finally look outward at the people it was supposed to serve, relabeling the citizen as a client in need of aid. This animated scale illustrates the shift. Administrators realized that strict bureaucratic neutrality actually alienated and harmed marginalized communities. To fix this, they placed a new metric on the other side of the scale: social equity. Then the global economic struggles of the 1980s hit. Facing severe fiscal constraints, governments pivoted again. They adopted a framework called New Public Management, shifting the citizen's label from a client to a customer. This philosophy dictated that the state must be run exactly like a competitive corporation, relying heavily on privatization and aggressive cost-cutting. In the UK, leaders like Margaret Thatcher championed this model. The corporate approach quickly crossed the Atlantic. In the United States, the Clinton administration launched the National Performance Review to completely re-engineer the federal bureaucracy. Led by Vice President Al Gore, the explicit goal during this era was to create a government that works better but costs less. Framing citizens as customers sounds appealing until you spot the flaw in the logic. A customer is simply an end user who consumes a product. They have absolutely no democratic voice in how that product or service is actually designed. By the 1990s, the vocabulary shifted from traditional government to modern governance, and with that, the citizen's label evolved once more, finally becoming a partner. Take a look at this diagram. Governance is the realization that the state cannot solve complex societal problems on its own. It requires structural collaboration across the public sector, private businesses, and civil society. To see this working in practice, we can look at the Philippines. In 1991, the country passed the Local Government Code, decentralizing power and moving authority away from the national capital directly into local communities. This empowered environment paved the way for programs like Gawad Kalinga. What began as a faith-based initiative grew into a massive multi-sectoral partnership driven by volunteerism and community building. This organizational framework outlines the mechanics of partnership. On the left, government provides the policy and land, businesses provide financial resources, and citizens supply sweat equity. Following the arrow's right, these inputs translate into improved capacities, better services, and living conditions that alleviate poverty. Remember, we started in a cold, rigid bureaucracy where you were just a number waiting in a line. Today, the most effective models of administration rely on a collaborative ecosystem. The public sector ultimately serves a public that is an essential co-creator of the state itself.